like, for me it's difficult.
शुरू नॉर्मली लोग देखने के लिए बैठा है.
I don't know. I cannot hear properly when he's sitting next to me.
Oh, so
Mataji?
No.
Mataji?
हाँ.
See?
Just
चैनल स्टार्टिंग है.
ठीक
क्या
है.
प्रभु जी आप बोले थोड़ी बात में.
yes, I don't know.
So, as Srila Prabhupada has been describing for the past 2 days, there are 3 stages of bhakti. The first is Gyan, then Jnanamayi, and then Kevala Bhakti. So now this is the 3rd time that Krishna explains that he's taken now 3 births as their son. And in this incarnation of Krishna, because first he appears as Vishnu, so it's an incarnation at that time, not the original Vishnu. He'll appear as Vishnu later, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So in this particular time, when Devaki and Vasudeva become the mother and father of the Supreme Lord, they will attain that Kevala Bhakti, pure love. But it's not the same as the Kevala Bhakti in Braj, because their mood is for Dwarka. They're the parents of Krishna in Dwarka. Now they're devotees because in the spiritual world there are different sections. There's Vrindavan section, Mathura section, Dwarka section. So the devotees in Dwarka are very happy serving Krishna in Dwarka. And the love that Devaki and Vasudeva, because first of all, they see Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then they see him as their son. So it's a different relationship than the inhabitants of Vrindavan have with Krishna. But Krishna assures them that after this particular lifetime, they will definitely go back to Godhead because their love has become pure for them, for him.
I have shown you this form of Vishnu just to remind you of my previous births. Otherwise, if I appeared like an ordinary human child, you would not believe that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, has indeed appeared. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.44. Devaki did not need to be reminded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, had appeared as her son. She already accepted this. Nonetheless, she was anxious, thinking that if her neighbors heard that Vishnu had appeared as her son, none of them would believe it. Therefore, she wanted Lord Vishnu to transform himself into a human child. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.44.
Yes. Again, we have that concept that love is between similarities. So Devaki having just two hands, she also wanted her child to have 2 hands. Because if her child had 4 hands, then her neighbors and her relatives, they wouldn't understand where this baby came from. She knew that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but she wanted him to behave just like a normal child because he was going to be her little baby.
On the other hand, the Supreme Lord was also anxious, thinking that if he appeared as an ordinary child, she would not believe that Lord Vishnu had appeared. Such are the dealings between devotees and the Lord. The Lord deals with his devotees exactly like a human being. But this does not mean that the Lord is one of the human beings. For this is the conclusion of non-devotees. Avajanti mudha manushim tamashitam. Bhagavad Gita 9.1, Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.4.
So the Supreme Lord, he reciprocates with his devotees according to the type of bhav or relationship they have with him. And Devaki and Vasudeva, they wanted the Supreme Lord to be their child. So he first appeared in the form that they understood to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the Vishnu form. And then, on their request, he became a little baby because he had other things to do. So he satisfied their desires, and then he went on with what he actually came to do.
Devotees know the Supreme Personality of Godhead under any circumstances. This is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. The Lord says, Manna Bhagavato Madhyajima Namaskuru. Bhagavad Gita 18.65. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. A non-devotee cannot believe simply by thinking of a person and can achieve liberation from this material world and go back home, back to Godhead. But this is a fact. The Lord comes as a human being, and if one becomes attached to the Lord on the platform of loving service, one's promotion to the transcendental world is assured. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:44.
So this is why the beginning platform, the foundation of love, is Gyan. First, we have to understand who the Supreme Lord is, what his qualities are, what his forms are, everything about him. And then when we hear from the proper authorities, Guru, Shastra, Sadhus, we become attracted to the Lord. And that's the Jnanamayi stage. And then from that Jnanamayi stage, when with full knowledge we have attraction for the Lord, then our love can develop to pure love. So Devaki and Vasudeva, according to their particular relationship with the Lord, because they appreciated the Lord in his Aishvarya Roop, so they wanted to first, he wanted to first convince them that he was actually the Supreme Lord before he appeared in a so-called human form. So he accomplished that, and now he's going to transform into a little baby.
Both of you, husband and wife, should constantly think of me as your son. But always know that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By thus thinking of me constantly with love and affection, you will achieve the highest perfection, returning home back to Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:3-41. This instruction by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to his father and mother, who are eternally connected with him, is especially intended for persons eager to return home back to God. One should never think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an ordinary human being, as non-devotees do. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:3-45.
So this instruction that Vishnu, or Sri Krishna, is giving to his mother and father is the essence of spiritual perfection. To always remember the Supreme Lord, and according to our relationship with him, we serve him in that mood. So first and foremost, we have to know who the Supreme Lord is. We should never think that he's an ordinary person. Although later, when love becomes absolutely pure, and we are in our Siddha Swarup, it's as if the Lord is an ordinary person, the way the Lord enjoys with his devotees. But still, we never can forget that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, we fall into the Sahajiya mentality, and we then so many aparads are committed on all levels. So we have to always remember who the Supreme Lord is, what our relationship is with him, and what type of service we can offer to him according to the instructions of the spiritual master.
Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personally appeared and left his instructions for the benefit of all human society. But fools and rascals unfortunately think of him as an ordinary human being and twist the instructions of Bhagavad Gita for the satisfaction of their senses. Practically everyone commenting on Bhagavad Gita interprets it for sense gratification. It has become especially fashionable for modern scholars and politicians to interpret the Bhagavad Gita as if it were something fictitious, and by their wrong interpretations, they are spoiling their own careers and the careers of others. Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 45.
So Krishna himself speaks in the Bhagavad Gita. But if we don't understand who Krishna is, then what he's speaking is of no general importance, and therefore the modern day scholars and politicians, they twist the words of Krishna into what they need to push on their philosophy. So we won't mention any names, but Prabhupada did give two examples. One is one great politician who somehow eschewed out of the Bhagavad Gita the philosophy of nonviolence. Although Krishna, from the very beginning, wanted Arjuna to fight to establish Dharma, one politician, by his own imagination, says that the real lesson of Bhagavad Gita is nonviolence. So that was one example. And another example of one scholar, very famous scholar, who also became the President of India, he says that it is not to Krishna that we should surrender, but to the Brahman within Krishna. So being an impersonalist, he denied the form of Krishna, he denied the very personality of Krishna. And when Srila Prabhupada went to meet this particular scholar in Tamil Nadu, by that time, because he had committed offense to the Supreme Lord, he had completely lost all sense. To speak philosophically with him, but he had no comprehension at that time. And finally, at the end of the conversation, when Prabhupada understood that he had lost his thinking capacity, the gentleman, he folded his hands and he simply said to Prabhupada, please pray for me. So this is the effect of when you take the words of Krishna and you twist them around for your own personal sense gratification, or to misguide others through the words of Krishna, through your misinterpretation.
The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is fighting against this principle of regarding Krishna as a fictitious person, and of accepting that there was no battle of Kurukshetra and everything is symbolic, and that nothing in the Bhagavad Gita is true. In any case, if one truly wants to be successful, one can do so by reading the text of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially stressed the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, Yare Dekhat Tare Kaho Krishna Upadesh, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mantra 7.128. If one wants to achieve the highest success in life, one must accept the Bhagavad Gita as spoken by the Supreme Lord. By accepting Bhagavad Gita in this way, all of human society can become perfect and happy.
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:45.
So exactly as Krishna instructs Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, Man mana bhava mad bhakto mad yajim namaskaru, twice Krishna gives this sloka, once exactly in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita, and once at the end of his instructions in the 18th chapter, at the very end of Bhagavad Gita. And Srila Prabhupada has said that this is the most important sloka. So the exact same instruction is being given by Sri Krishna to his mother and father here, because he knew he would be separated them for at least 11 years. So he advised them during that time of separation, you simply do as I've instructed you. Man mana bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskru. Always think of me. So this is the essence of spiritual life. Wherever we are, whatever we're doing, we have to always think of Krishna.
It is to be noted that because Vasudeva and Devaki will be separated from Krishna, then he was carried to Gokula, the residence of Nanda Maharaj. Lord personally instructed them that they should always think of him as their son and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That would keep them in touch with him. After 11 years, the Lord would return to Mathura to be their son. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:3-44.
So this is a very interesting painting. First you see baby Krishna on the left-hand side with Devaki and Vasudeva in the jail. And then Vasudeva is exiting, the guards are sleeping. He's crossing the Jamuna over to Gokul. Gokul is where all the cows are. And then he enters into Yashoda's maternity room. He transfers Krishna to Yashoda and takes Mother Yashoda's little baby girl, and then he comes out again. So all in one picture, you have practically this entire chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam.
This is the hour. This is called the what you painted?
No, this is a classic painting.
Having spoken thus in the presence of his father and mother, the Lord turned himself into an ordinary child and remained silent. Krishna Book Chapter 3. Shukadeva Goswami said, after thus instructing his father and mother, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna remained silent. In their presence, by his internal energy, he then transformed himself into a small human child. In other words, he transformed himself into his original form, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swami. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.28. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.46.
Yes, so Krishna now has transformed himself, but immediately he leaves. So Devaki, again we have this Vipralamba Bhav. In separation, she's just thinking of her little son Krishna for the next 11 years and waiting for him to return to her so she can express all of her maternal affection to him. So sometimes, to increase the love of a devotee, Krishna does that. He separates himself, and then the devotee becomes so absorbed in thinking of him that when again he appears, their love has become more pure. So this is what happened in the instance of Devaki and Vasudeva.
So she knows he's in down.
Yes, they take him there.
As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4.6, Sambhavami Atmamaya, whatever is done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is done by his spiritual energy. Nothing is forced upon him by material energy. This is the difference between the Lord and an ordinary living being. Vedas say, Parasa Shaktir Vividhi Vashurade Swabhavihi Dhyana Balakriya Cha Shveta Shata Upanishad 6.8. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 13.65.4 also quotes this verse. It is natural for the Lord to be untinged by material qualities, and because everything is perfectly present in his spiritual energy, as soon as he desires something, it is immediately done. The Lord is not a Prakruta Shishu, a child of this world, but by his personal energy, he appears like one. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.46.
So through Krishna's Atma Maya, that's his internal energy, his own personal energy, anything is possible. So whatever Krishna wants to do, he can do through his own energies. And at this time, he's chosen to become a little child, to accept the maternal affection now of his real mother, Mother Yashoda, in Gokul.
Ordinary people may have difficulty accepting the supreme controller, God, as a human being, because they forget that he can do everything by spiritual energy, Atmaya. Non-believers say, how can the supreme controller descend as an ordinary being? This sort of thinking is materialistic. Srimad Goswami says, unless we accept the energy of the Supreme Personality of God as inconceivable, beyond the conception of our words and mind, we cannot understand the Supreme Lord. Those who doubt that the Supreme Personality of God can come as a human being and turn himself into a human child are fools who think that Krishna's body is material, that he is born, and that he therefore also dies. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.46.
Yes, so therefore, because Krishna understood that Devaki and Vasudeva first had to see his form as Vishnu in order for them to believe that he was actually the Supreme Lord, he showed that form first, and then he became a little child. But in the case of Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and the other inhabitants of Gokul, they didn't care if Krishna was the Supreme Lord or not. They simply loved Krishna as Krishna. He was such an attractive little child. Everything about him was so attractive. So they had no concept whatsoever. Even if he did amazing things, wonderful feats, they thought maybe he was a demigod, or maybe by the Lord's special potency he got this ability to do things. But they didn't even want to think that he was the Supreme Lord, because that mentality of Gyan and Aishwarya would have destroyed the pure love that they enjoyed with him in Braj.
In Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 4th chapter, verses 28 and 29, there is a description of Krishna leaving his body. Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, when all the members of Yadu dynasty met their end, Krishna also put an end to himself, and the only member of family remained alive was Uddhava. How was this possible? Shukadeva Goswami answered that Krishna, by his own energy, destroyed the entire family and then thought of making his own body disappear. In this connection, Shukadeva Goswami described how the Lord gave up his body. But this was not the destruction of Krishna's body. Rather, it was the disappearance of Supreme Lord by his personal energy. Srimad Bhagavatam 3 from this point.
Here we have because Maharaj Parikshit first asked the question, and then Sukadeva Goswami gave an answer. So these are two of those verses of those answers.
Sukadeva Goswami replied, "My dear king, the cursing of the Brahmanas was only a plea, but the actual fact was the supreme desire of the Lord. He wanted to disappear from the face of the earth by dispatching his excessively numerous family members. He thought to himself as follows: now I shall leave the vision of the mundane world, and I see that Uddhava, foremost of my devotees, is the only one who can be directly entrusted with knowledge about me." Bhagavatam 4.3 from 29.
Yes. So the cursing of the Brahmins, that was the event when Samba dressed up as a young girl, a pregnant girl, and he and his brothers asked the Brahmins what type of baby would it be, a girl or a boy. So at that time the Brahmins cursed Samba that you'll give birth to a musal, a big club, an iron club, that will destroy your entire dynasty. So with that club they took to Ugrasen. Ugrasen, he decided to have it ground up and thrown in the ocean into sharp reeds. And then Krishna arranged that all of his family members, except for the eternal associates who came with Krishna from the spiritual world, they all stayed in Dwarka. But the rest of them, who were demigods, who had come with to take part in the pastimes, they all went to Prapakshetra, and there they had a fratricidal war, and they all killed each other. And only Uddhava, he remained. And at that time Krishna spoke the Uddhava Gita to him, and then instructed him to go to Badarik ashram. So out of the entire dynasty, only Uddhava and the eternal associates of the Lord, who were still in Dwarka, they remained. They went back to Godhead eventually. So Krishna, this is all his Leela from his Atma Mayaya. It was the way he wound up his pastimes after he had finished killing all of the great demons, the last demon being Dantavakra. So just as his birth is amazing, his death, not death, but his disappearance is also amazing. And all of it is done by his sweet will through his own internal energy.
Actually, Lord does not give up his body, which is eternal. But as he can change his body from the form of Vishnu to that of an ordinary human child, he can change his body to any form he likes. This does not mean that he gives up his body. As spiritual energy, the Lord can appear in a body made of wood or stone. He can change his body into anything, because everything is his energy. Parasa Shakti Vivashu. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 30.65. This is 10.46.
Yes. So Srila Prabhupada, when we opened the temple, Prabhupada was thinking of different ways to maintain the temple here. So he came up with a business idea. He said that, I want you to make dolls. He told Dhananjaya this. You make Gaurnitai dolls and Radha Krishna dolls. They can be made out of brass. And people can buy these dolls, take them home, put them on their shelves like they do with all their other dolls, and just by looking at those dolls, they'll become purified. So the Archamurti, that's different, but the Archamurti can be made out of 8 different materials. But for instance, this particular, it's a deity or a doll, whatever you want to call. This is made out of synthetic material. So Prabhupada also gave permission for the devotees to make the dolls out of synthetic material, because ultimately that synthetic material also comes from the earth. But the problem with synthetic material is it doesn't last a long time. So as for how we can worship the Archa Vigraha, whoops, what happened? Nothing's working all of a sudden. It's working? I can't see it. Let's get the slideshow back. Resume slideshow.
It's just moving from this to F5 works.
Here, I'm getting it now. Okay. So, here.
The deity form of the Lord is said to appear in 8 varieties: stone, wood, metal, earth, paint, sand, the mind, or jewels. The deity form of the Lord, who is the shelter of all living entities, can be established in 2 ways: temporarily or permanently. But a permanent deity, having been called, can never be sent away. My dear Uddhava, this is Pancharatra Pradeep.
Yes. So, for instance, one deity form of the Lord can be paint, and that's 2-dimensional, like painting of the Lord. Another can be jewels. So the Shalagram Shila is considered to be temples, and he personally invited their lordships to accept the worship on his behalf from his disciples and his followers. This worship can never be stopped. That once having been called, they can never be sent away. So therefore it's our responsibility to very carefully worship the deities here, as Srila Prabhupada has instructed us, because the Archamurti is non-different from the Supreme Lord himself, through his Atmamaya, through his internal potency.
F5.
No, F5 doesn't work on my thing. It's working fine. Everything's fine.
It's not,
Oh, it's not the slideshow. No, something's gone wrong.
With this works?
Nope, it's not working. The cursor's not visible. Ah. No? There.
Yeah.
Okay. There it is. There's the cursor.
Next one.
Next.
as clearly said in the Bhagavad Gita 7.4, Vinna Prakriti Rashtatha. Material elements are separated energies of the Supreme Lord. When he transforms himself into Archa Murti, the worshipable deity which we see as stone or wood, he is still Krishna. Therefore the Shastra warns, Arche Vishnu Shilabhir Purusha Narapati. One of the things that the worshipable deity in the temple is made of wood or stone. One who sees a Vaishnava Guru as an ordinary human being, or one who materially conceives of Vaishnava as belonging to a particular caste, is Naraki, a resident of hell. Srimad Bhagavatam 20:46.
So 3 things. Just as we heard today how the Lord transformed himself from the Vishnu Murti to a small child Murti. The Lord also can transform himself into the deity form, and when invited, he can accept the worship when a pure devotee invites him to accept that worship. So everything is connected in the sense that first we have to understand who the Supreme Lord is, then we have to understand who the pure devotee, the Guru, is, and we also have to understand who the Vaishnava is, the devotees who are worshipping the Supreme Lord. Because all 3 of them, if we consider them to be prakrita, ordinary, then we're committing an offense and we become a resident of hell. So 3 things. A devotee in the mode of ignorance, they don't understand, nor do they give respect to Vaishnavas. So if we remain in the mode of ignorance, it's as if residing in hell. We have to give respect to the Vaishnavas, to the Guru, and ultimately to the Supreme Lord by serving him with love.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead can appear before us in many forms as he likes, but we must know the true facts. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vinti tattvata. Bhagavad Gita 4.9. By following instructions of Sadhu, Guru and Shastra, the saintly persons, the spiritual master, and the authoritative scriptures, one can understand Krishna, and then one makes his life successful by returning home back to Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.46.
So we're so fortunate we have the opportunity to serve in Vrindavan by Prabhupada's mercy. And just 8 kilometers from here is Mathura, where the Supreme Lord eternally has his appearance pastime. So if we can carefully understand this pastime of Krishna's appearance, his so-called Janma, when he chose to appear in Mathura, and then he chose to take the form of a child and come here to Braj, without thinking that the Lord is just an ordinary person, then we can attain the perfection of spiritual life. And that's why it's so important to understand every single sloka of this 10th canto, because Krishna himself is giving instructions to his parents here. And those instructions are meant for us also. We should always think of him in the particular form in which we worship him. We should serve him. And now we're going to hear about how he transfers himself to Vrindavan.
Being ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva attempted to take his son from the delivery room, and exactly at that time, a daughter was born of Nanda and Yashoda. She was Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Lord. Krishna Book, chapter 3. Thereafter, exactly when Vasudeva, being inspired by the Supreme Personality of God, was about to take the newborn child from the delivery room, Yogamaya, Lord's spiritual energy, took birth as the daughter of the wife of Maharaj Nanda. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.47.
So we heard about this instruction that Krishna gave to Yogamaya in the previous chapters. So she was following his order, and exactly as he instructed her, she's now taken birth in Braj as Yogamaya. It's not mentioned anywhere that her name was Subhadra in that birth. Her name here is Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Lord. And the Lord instructed Vasudeva to take him now to the home of Nanda Maharaj and switch the babies and bring back Yogamaya to Devaki. So this is all being done on the instruction of the Lord to Vasudeva.
Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discusses that Krishna appeared simultaneously as the son of Devaki and as the son of Yashoda, along with the spiritual energy Yogamaya. As the son of Devaki, he first appeared with Vishnu. And because Vasudeva was not in the position of pure affection for Krishna, Vasudeva worshipped his son as Lord Vishnu. Yashoda, however, pleased her son Krishna without understanding his godhood. This is the difference between Krishna as the son of Yashoda and as the son of Devaki. This is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti on authority of Hari Vamsha, Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.47.
So Devaki and Vasudeva, they loved Krishna, the Supreme Lord, because he was the Supreme Lord. But Yashoda simply loved Krishna. She had no concept of the fact that he was the Supreme Lord, Yashoda's child.
By the influence of his internal potency, Yogamaya, all residents of Kamsa's palace, especially the doorkeepers, were overwhelmed with deep sleep, and all the palace doors opened, although they were barred and shackled with iron chains. The night was very dark, and as soon as Vasudeva took Krishna on his lap and went out, he could see everything just as in the sunlight. In the Charitamrita it is said that Krishna is just like sunlight. And wherever there is Krishna, the illusory energy which is compared to darkness cannot remain. Krishna Book, chapter 3.
So all of these things for anyone else would be impossible. There were iron pins keeping the doors shut, and there were iron chains locking the doors, and by Krishna's desire, everything opened up automatically, and all of the residents in Kamsa's quarters, especially the guards, they fell into deep sleep because Krishna wanted to go to Gokul. That's the only reason why everything happened, because Krishna is the supreme controller, so he can arrange anything however he wants it to happen. And Vasudeva, seeing that Krishna was making all the arrangements, he left the prison, went out, and Krishna himself, even though it was a dark night because of his effulgence, everything was visible to Vasudeva for taking him directly to Gokul.
Setting of the scene. Vasudeva saw that all of the doors were open and that the gatekeepers were asleep. So he went outside of the house and came to the bank of Yamuna. He sees that the river is inflated with rainy season water, and he thinks, how will I cross? Then he saw a jackal crossing the river, and Vasudeva realized that the river was shallow and only up to his ankles. So Vasudeva, holding little Krishna in his arms, follows the jackal across the Yamuna river. So this night scene of walking across the river is the fourth picture.
In the very beginning, we heard how Srila Prabhupada directed his artist. At that time he wrote a letter to Jadharani about 5 paintings he wanted her to make for the Krishna book. So this was the 4th painting. The previous 3 paintings we already saw and we heard about. And in this 4th painting, this is what Prabhupada wrote in the letter, that there was a jackal, and then Vasudeva was able to understand that although the water was raging because there was a storm going on, it actually wasn't deep, and we'll hear why that is.
So that's in Bhagavatam, not in Krishna book about Jack and then...
We'll see. read on.
When Vasudeva was carrying Krishna, the darkness of the night disappeared. All the doors automatically opened, and at the same time, there was thunder in the sky and severe rainfall. While Vasudeva was carrying his son Krishna in the falling rain, Lord Shesha, in the shape of a serpent, spread his hood over the head of Vasudeva so that he would not be hampered by the rainfall. Krishna Book, Chapter 3.
Yes. So how is it that Anantashesha suddenly appeared there?
Anantashesha is the devotee incarnation of Godhead. He knows nothing but service to Lord Krishna. He serves Lord Krishna, assuming all the foreign forms: umbrella, slippers, bedding, pillow, garments, resting chair, residence, sacred thread, and throne. He is thus called Lord Shesha, for he has attained the ultimate end of servitude to Krishna. He takes many forms for the service of Krishna, and thus he serves the Lord. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 5.120 to 124.
So now Anantashesha has appeared because he saw that Krishna needed an umbrella. So he took the form of an umbrella in his Anantashesha form. Now this is coming from Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Krishnadas Kaviraj is explaining that the same Nityananda Ram is Anantashesha, and therefore he came to assist the Lord in his pastimes also, in Mahaprabhu's pastimes.
By the influence of Yogamaya, all the doorkeepers fell fast asleep, their senses unable to work, and the other inhabitants of the house also fell deeply asleep. When the sun rises, the darkness automatically disappears. Similarly, when Vasudeva appeared, the closed doors, which were strongly pinned with iron and locked with iron chains, opened automatically. Since the clouds in the sky were mildly thundering and showering, Anantana, an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, followed Vasudeva, beginning from the door, with hoods expanded to protect Vasudevas and the transcendental child. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.48-49.
So you see Srila Prabhupada's description in the Krishna book and here in the Bhagavatam are exactly the same. This is the wonderful thing about the two.
About the jackal.
The jackals, he only gave that explanation to the artists.
Sheshana is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose business is to serve the Lord with all necessary paraphernalia. When Vasudeva was carrying the child, Sheshana came to serve the Lord and protect him from the mild showers of rain. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.48-49.
So all the different incarnations of the Lord were also looking for an opportunity to serve Krishna and the demigods too.
Vasudeva came onto the bank of Yamuna and saw that the water of Yamuna was roaring with waves, and that the whole span was full of foam. Still, in that furious feature, the river gave passage to Vasudeva to cross, just as the great Indian Ocean gave a path to Lord Ram when he was bridging over the Gulf. In this way, Vasudeva crossed the river Yamuna. Krishna Book, Chapter 3.
So just as Varunadev, he gave passage to Lord Ram. So now the Yamuna River, although it was raging because a storm was going on, it separated just as the ocean gave passage to Ram. And it was Indra who was making this rainfall.
Because of constant rain sent by the demigod Indra, the river Yamuna has filled with deep water, foaming about with fiercely whirling waves. But as the great Indian Ocean had formerly given way to Lord Ramchandra by allowing him to construct a bridge, the river Yamuna gave way to Vasudeva and allowed him to cross.
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3.50.
So all the devotees of the Lord, the demigods, the river, Anantashesh, they were just looking for opportunities how to assist the Lord in his, even from the very beginning of his appearance here. They were watching and waiting and they came to all help as soon as the Lord came out of the prison.
On the other side, he went to the palace, to the place of Nanda Maharaj, situated in Gokula, where he saw that all the cowherd men were fast asleep. He took the opportunity of silently entering into the house of Yashoda, and without difficulty he replaced his son, taking away the baby. When Vasudeva reached the house of Nanda Maharaj, he saw that all cowherd men were fast asleep. Thus placed his own son on the bed of Yashoda, picked up her daughter, expansion of Yogamaya, and then returned to his residence, the prison house of Kosa. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.59.
So there are other shastras that describe this in more detail, how all of the Brijbasis, they had stayed up because Nanda Maharaj was their king, and he was childless. So this was going to be the first child that was going to be born to Nandarani. And they were all so excited. But for some reason the child wasn't coming. So the mother was exhausted, all the women who were trying to help her were exhausted, and all the Brijbasis, because there was so much enthusiasm, anticipation for this child to be born. So then they, by Krishna's arrangement, they all went into deep sleep. And at that time Vasudeva was able to come and exchange the baby silently. We have to remember that Vasudeva here was voluntarily doing this on the order of the Lord, even though he had made that promise to Kamsa. But anyway, anyhow, he was going to protect his little child Krishna. So he was willing to even break his promise for the Lord.
Vasudeva knew very well that as soon as the daughter was in the prison house of Kamsa, Kamsa would immediately kill her. But to protect his own child, he had to kill the child of his friend. Nanda Maharaj was his friend, but out of deep affection. Furthermore, Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness, since his actions were impelled by the force of Yogamaya. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.21.
Obviously this was all being arranged by the Supreme Lord, otherwise how the doors could have opened, how the guards could have all been deeply sleeping, how he could have crossed the river. So this is all because the Lord wanted to go immediately to Nanda Maharaj's house to begin his pastimes there. And Vasudeva was simply following the actions were impelled by the force of Yogamaya. He was simply on the instruction of the Lord, he was carrying out all of these activities so that Krishna could be saved and Yogamaya would be brought back to Mathura.
Vasudeva returned to the prison of Kamsa and silently put the bowl on the lap of Devaki. He again clamped the shackles on himself so that Kamsa would not recognize that so many things had happened. Krishna Book Chapter 3. Vasudeva placed the female child on the bed of Devaki, bound his legs with the iron shackles, and thus remained there as before. Srimad 10.3.52.
So they wanted to trick Kamsa, and this again is classic painting. Kamsa is sleeping, because everyone was deeply sleeping while all of this was going on. Then Vasudeva, here on the right, he comes back with the little baby girl and hands the baby girl to Devaki. And then he locks the chains again on himself so that Kamsa won't know that he had made this exchange of the babies. And then the baby starts to cry. So the guards, they go to wake up Kamsa and tell him that the baby's been born. So Kamsa immediately comes, and we'll learn about this in the next chapter. He sees a baby girl. And he said, well, it was supposed to be a baby boy? Are even the gods lying now? But nevertheless, he still takes that baby girl, and you see here in the central picture, as he did with all the babies, what he would do is he would grab them by the feet, take them outside, and smash them against a rock. So he did the same thing with this innocent little baby girl, but when he went to smash her on the rock, as he lifted her, she flew into the sky, as Yogamaya, and then she had some words for Kamsa. We'll hear about that tomorrow.
Mother Yashoda understood that a child was born of her. Because she was very tired from the labor of childbirth, she was fast asleep. When she awoke, she could not remember whether she had given birth to a male or female child. Krishna Book Chapter 3. Exhausted by the labor of childbirth, Yashoda was overwhelmed with sleep and unable to understand what kind of child had been born to her. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.53.
Actually, this is what happens in childbirth. When the baby is born, the mother is so happy and so loving towards that baby. When the baby is put on the chest of the mother, it doesn't even matter whether the baby is a baby girl or a baby boy. She just loves that baby so much. So Mother Yasoda also, because she had sent everyone away, the baby wasn't coming, nobody was there with her in the room while she was resting. And then the baby came. So she was so exhausted from the labor, she didn't even look to see whether it was a boy or a girl. She simply had the baby lying next to her, because labor is a very exhausting thing. Anyone who's been through childbirth knows that. And whatever the baby is, the mother loves the baby as her own self, because that she's just gone through so much to produce that child.
Nanda Maharaj and Sudeva were intimate friends, and so were their wives Yashoda and Devaki. Although their names were different, they were practically non-different personalities. The only difference is that Devaki was able to understand Supreme Personality of Godhead, had been born to her, and had now changed into Krishna, whereas Yashoda was not able to understand what kind of child had been born to her. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.53.4.
So in the morning time, when Yashoda wakes up, and then it's announced that yes, she had a baby in the middle of the night, it was at midnight, then everyone starts to celebrate. So this will be in the coming chapters. This might be the last one. There's one more, few more.
Yashoda was such an advanced devotee that she never regarded Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead, but simply loved him as her own child. Devaki, however, knew from the very beginning that although Krishna was her son, he was the Supreme Personality of God. In Vrindavan, no one regarded Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God. Then something very wonderful happened because of Krishna's activities. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, the coward men and the coward boys, Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda and others were surprised, but they never considered their son.
Something extraordinary happened to Krishna, such as the appearance of Putana, Trinavarta, Shakadasura, and so many other demons, and all the wonderful feats that Krishna accomplished even as a little newborn baby. No one even began to imagine that this little child could be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No, they just thought it was, they had so many conjectures about how this happened, why this happened. So we'll read about that, how the Brijvasis simply loved Krishna according to their different relationships with him, but never considered him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Sometimes this is the position of Krishna and intensely loves the Supreme Personality of Godhead without understanding his position. This is called Kevala Bhakti and is distinct from the stages of Jnana and Jnanamaya Bhakti. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.53. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of 10th and the 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Birth of Lord Krishna. So
we're so fortunate devotees here in Braj, which are completely different from his relationships with all the devotees outside of Braj, because here it's pure love, it's Kevala Bhakti. This is the place of that pure love, Braj, and we'll be hearing more and more. Tomorrow we'll start chapter 4. Hare Krishna.